What's up, everybody? It's your boy Showtimedr. This is going to be my first character guide for Leon in Langrisser Mobile. Let's get into it here. I'm going to go as quickly as possible. You guys are used to my quick videos. It's going to be a process. I'm going to see how quick I can do this one. So let's get into it. So Leon here, there's a reason they call this game Langrisser over in China. This guy is super good. He's a cavalry unit. And depending on how you build him, there's two different builds I'm going to go into. He can either be kind of a defensive tanky force with a lot of attack, or he could just be a straight attack killer with decent tankiness. So you see here my gear I've gotten on him. Just some SR gear with some 2-star stuff. I'll be going into SSR gear later. I looked up some more for this guide. But in general, just try to get him as much attack and HP defense as possible. And if you can manage to get some skill as well, skill increases crit chance for those who don't know. That's great. A little bit of magic defense, that always helps, but he's such a hit and run unit, and usually the healer's right behind him. Not going to be a big difference. Now, do keep in mind as well his factions, Empire's Honor, as well as Strategic Masters, depending on eventually when we unlock, I think it's Intimacy, whichever faction you start investing in. If you invest in, I believe it's the Empire faction, it's going to change his class build, but we'll get more into that later. So let's go into his basic here. His basic passive here, with every 1 block moved on the battlefield, damage is increased by 1%, defense is increased by 5%. It is possible to move again after attacking. So pretty much, let's say that Leon's here, and there's a unit you want to attack here. Well, rather than just going straight to the unit, if you can strategically and safely go around that unit and possibly behind him, you will be doing more damage because you will have traveled more squares. And that also figures into his 1, which we will get into later. But also, one thing to note here, possible to move 3 squares again after attacking. Really great. You're going to be able to move 3 squares either into more offensive position, perhaps a blockade to block a unit from getting to another unit, or possibly defensively, depending on what's going on in the battle, so he can get behind either a tank unit or get closer to a heal unit, etc. So, really good skill there, really underrated skill. Now on his 1, what I said, actually real quick, let me show you what happens when you eventually skill this up, his passive. As you get more star levels, it goes up. So at 4, it's going to be attack percentage 2, defense 10% for every square traveled. And then 15% and 3% for 5, and eventually you're going to get to 20% defense increase and 4% attack increase for each square you move, which makes him ridiculous. Just absolutely insane, ridiculous. Now, we're going to go into his skill here. His skill also stacks with that. Basically, if you activate this, it has a 1 square range, either straight or horizontal, vertically or horizontal. It's going to attack 1 single enemy, going to make it so that they can't be healed for a turn. And then also the damage is going to increase by up to 60%, 20% for each square move. So you can get another 60% damage on top of however many squares you travel and however leveled up you have this passive up here. Super strong. Now as you start upgrading him a little bit more, this is going to unlock Legion. When troop HP is above 90%, attack and defense are increased by 10%. So just another additional stack on his attack and defense. That's why you want his base attack and defense to be as high as possible, because it's constantly stacking. Now, we're going to get into... You're going to upgrade his class bonuses here. The more you upgrade, the more you're going to get his class skills, which we will go into a little bit later here. So make sure you're staying on top of that. His soldiers are actually very interesting, but I'm going to get into those more as we go into the class upgrades. So let's just go ahead and go there. Now, eventually, when you fill up his class quality, which is the scroll farming that you do in this game, you're going to keep upgrading, and there's going to be different choices. He's going to start off as a knight, but there's going to be different choices as to the skills he's going to go into. Now, real quick, before I get into the different trees, be sure you check out the class mastery. The more classes you master, the more passive stats you get here. And it's just a little bonus on top of what you're going to get for mastering the class anyways. Now, the popular choice that most people are choosing right now for his class mastery, a lot of people are going Grand Knight into Strike Master, which is what I'm actually doing right now. And keep in mind too, before I get into the builds, like, how do I say this? you can always go back and master all the classes, guys. The classes are all meant to be mastered eventually with the characters, but that's a process that is going to take months at a time. So don't think you're just going to get a character and instantly master all their classes. It's not like that, especially at the beginning of the game. Now, if you choose to go into the Grand Knight skill, this is a more offensive skill set here. So what's going to happen, he's going to get this new skill, Smash, when you master it. Attacks a single enemy, deals 1.4 damage, pushes the target back 2 blocks, which is pretty unique, decreases their mobility by 20%, and disables the guard effect, so they can no longer defend. And it lasts for 2 turns. And this is actually available too as a Royal Knight, which I will show you later, but you get this kind of early here at Grand Knight. The more you upgrade and eventually get the Mastery skill. Now, you're also going to unlock these different troopers. They're going to be kind of these horned dinos, which I think are actually pretty cool. They have stats comparable to the regular cavalry trooper. They act the same as cavalry, so they're weak to lancers, strong against infantry. But when their HP is 100%, they get an attack bonus. So you're going to want to use these guys in most cases if you're going into this. However, if you are fighting a map where there are a lot of dangerous lancers, and you're scared of lancers for whatever reason, you're actually going to want to pick the Lesser Imp here. So the Lesser Imp, his weakness is actually going to be the archer-type troops, but he is not weak to lancers, so he's actually going to tank for you better than these guys, because you see his HP. His defense isn't quite there, but he can be upgraded. I need to upgrade my imps more. I've actually put a lot of upgrades into the cavalry units. So he can be upgraded, just the base stats. So if you're fighting a bunch of lancers, you got a lancer boss, and you still want to bring Leon, just go ahead and get this guy. Just watch out for the archer units. Now, when this guy attacks troops with 100 HP, his attacks increase by 10 as well. So it's kind of a similar thing here. But, you know, your troops are very important, guys, for tanking for your units. So when you can, switch your troops up, and that's going to be really tactically important, especially mid and late game. After level 20, the power creep starts to get pretty insane. So now, for those of you who do not know, once you master a class, their skills and their troops are unlocked no matter what other class you decide to go in. So whether you keep going down to Strike Master or you decide, hey, I want to come over here and start doing Highlander, you're going to have these troops and this skill unlocked. And let me show you real quick. Come over here to Info. You can switch out his skills. You can have up to 3 active at a time, whether it's an active skill or a passive skill. And you can swap them out the more you unlock. And it's the same thing with the soldiers. You can choose whatever you want once you've unlocked it. So let's get back to the class upgrading. Now also, eventually what I'm going for is to be a Strike Master. Now this is going to be the harder hitter out of all the abilities, all the class levels in this. So here are their skills here. When initiating combat, if troop HP is above 80%, you remember over here, well, actually, it was a base skill. It's actually 90%, so it gets to 80% now. Troop skills above 80%. Damage taken is decreased by 30% during battle. Super strong right there, especially at the beginning of battles. Keep a healer along. If you can find some gear later on, that helps him heal up a little bit. Really awesome. Now, Shivery, this is going to be his active skill for this role. Increases troop attack by 20%. Grants buff, immune, and blast. Immune, I believe that makes you immune to certain debuffs. Sorry, I don't have a quick explanation for that. Blast is kind of an offensive ability. Both last 2 turns. Or, excuse me, Blast, I believe... I'll have to look it up, actually, but I believe it increases certain stat bonuses. When cast, it's possible to attack again within 3 blocks. So that's actually pretty cool. Normally, when you attack with him, it's going to... He's going to attack, and then whatever happens, he has 3 squares he's going to move. But now, he can actually attack again, which makes him really ridiculous for attacking. And then, you know, wasn't immune. I'm going to look up those skills for you guys real quick. Just going to have to give me a second here. I'll put it on the wiki. But then we'll keep going here. So, I'll put a blast. Oh, it's not on the wiki. Great. Well, I guess that's one of the things we don't know. If someone could chime in, please, on the comments, immune and wiki. I'm guessing immunity means he's immune to certain debuffs, like attack down, possibly heal block, etc. Blast, I would assume that would buff his offensive stats at some point. Won't know until I get there, so... Alright, so that is pretty much the Strike Master build that most people are going to be doing. However, if you are going to invest in his faction, there's the Highlander build down to the Royal Knight build. Now, the passive for the Highlander build, before battle, 50% chance to reduce the enemy's attack and intelligence by 20. So you're gimping basically their attack power. Pretty good there. And then the troopers you're going to get, they're basically the elite cavalry. So it's the same thing as the troopers he starts off with. But they're just going to have better stats. They're going to be a little bit tankier. Damage taken is decreased by 10. Similar to, but just a tankier overall horse unit with the same weaknesses and strengths. Strong against infantry, weak against lancers. You can, however, choose to go the warriors. If you're fighting a bunch of lancers, these guys are going to help you tank them better because they're strong against lancers, but you have to watch out for cavalry if there's cavalry units on. So depending on if you're doing certain farming missions, like if you're farming the lancer place, you can still take Leon with you. Just go ahead and switch up to the warrior troops once you unlock them. And when initiating combat, crit is increased by 10%. That could be really strong, potentially. Hope you do some more damage since this is a more tanky build rather than a damage build. Now, if you're going to go down to Royal Knight, pay very close attention to this, guys. Okay, this is a faction buff. A faction buff is only going to be for people in his faction, so let me read it for you here. Active skill. Attack and defense increases significantly for all allies with Honor of the Empire within range. Okay? So the range of this skill is apparently all, so I guess that doesn't matter. So anyone on the map, pretty much. Before attacking, with every one block move, defense and magic defense is increased by 5%, at most 15%, last 4 turns, so it helps make them even more tankier. And this is a faction buff that lasts 4 turns. Now, this buff, the way I'm reading it, apparently goes on everybody in the faction, which means they all get this one block move, defense and magic defense increase up to 15% for 4 turns. Cannot be stacked with other faction buffs, which I have heard. So if he's like the strategic faction, right? Yeah, this is Honor of the Empire. So this is the Empire faction. So if you had the strategic faction, he's also a member of the strategic faction, but if someone else could buff that, this buff would be overriding it right here. So I don't know if you cast the other buff, if it cancels this buff out, or if this one just stays and the other buff gets canceled out. But in general, just, you're not supposed to do that anyways. But so keep that in mind if you are running a bunch of people that are in the Empire, which we will go back here and I will show you. Empire's Honor. So you got some pretty strong heroes here like Elwyn. I think that's Bernhardt right there. Vargas, he's a popular tank. Some of these other units. I use Egbert, etc. If you have a bunch of people in this faction, and this is one of the factions that you're choosing, you may very well wish to go the middle route with the upgrade class. Now we're going to keep going here. On the Royal Knight, there is also another active. Physical damage attacks a single enemy, dealing 1.7 damage. After the battle, enemy's mobility is -2 and cannot guard. Last 2 turns cannot be dispelled, which is a upgrade from this skill, which basically does the same thing, but it can be dispelled. So be aware of that, especially for PvP. If you go all the way with this one cannot be dispelled. So this one is in fact better, as it should be, because it is deeper in the tree. So if you go down this class to the Royal Knight, first you are going to get a tankier unit. Still hits pretty hard, but mostly does tanker units, and you're going to get that really important faction buff if you choose to go with the Empire. Now, Strike Master, like I said, that's going to hit harder. It's also going to open up double attack, which is going to be really strong eventually later. Now, last one over here, and most characters have this in the game, if you look at them quickly, or concisely rather. They can actually change what type of unit they become, and in this case, he would become a sword unit. Do not recommend this at all right away, because he is so strong based off of his mobility, and all of his skills revolve around his mobility, including his attack and defense stacking, percentage stacking. But if you look at this passive here, when HP ratio is above... when HP ratio is above the enemy's attack, increases... Oh, my bad. Okay, I'm reading this wrong. When HP ratio is above the enemy, so if you have higher HP percentage than the enemy, attack is increased by 12% when entering battle. Pretty good. But you're going to have to master this. So what I would recommend for this is, because you really want this guy to be a horse unit, for all the reasons I stated earlier. If you want to get this passive for whatever reason, you're really just dead set on it and you want these troops, because, you know, you get these elite infantry, which is pretty good, strong against lancers, and also elite lancers. And that reminds me, I forgot to go over the troops for the other ones. I'll do that in a second. I would suggest just look up what it takes to upgrade this, and just have all the scrolls ready for it, and just do it all in one fell swoop. So you can get it, you can get the passive, you can unlock these troops, and then immediately switch them back to either Royal Knight or Strike Master or whatever you prefer. That's my opinion, so. And once again, these troops, the secondary troops, because we went over these, they're just stronger versions of the basic troops. So the Guardian Cavalry, more tankier, better passive. When initiating combat, damage taken is decreased by 15%. When attacked and your soldier's HP is above 80%, defense is increased by 15%. So these guys are just tankier versions of these guys. That's just how it is, or more harder hitting versions of these guys. And that's pretty much it for the class guide, guys. Now I'm going to show you some pieces of gear that you can when we eventually all start farming SSR gear. Some stuff for you to look at. So let me get to that real quick. It's kind of a pain to look at it here. And we'll go to the gallery, go to equipment. By the way, I don't recommend summoning for gear, guys, but if you are going to summon, because there are some quests in game to do it, do single summons, don't do 10 summons. Because you can farm SR gear easily, you don't need the guaranteed SSR gear, my opinion. Now, as far as weapons go, there's a couple. Let me find them. Kind of a little pain to go through all these. Blue Star was one, so Blue Star has a unique chance to, once you level up to 10, to stack with his passive, assuming that it stacks in this game. Attack defense and magic defense are increased by 1% for every 1 block move before battle, up to 3%. So it's not a huge upgrade, but everything counts, right? So everything stacks, so this could potentially be a very good weapon for him. I'm gonna see. There's also Blood Sword Hunting, so it is a sword. I guess that's it. Hunting. So, the passive here, or excuse me, yeah, it's a passive eventually. Attacks 1% after actively dealing damage, 50% chance to deal extra fixed damage. So that's actually pretty strong. You can deal some fixed damage. 0.5% of the hero's attack, where clearly this guy's attack is going to be ridiculous with all the multipliers going on. So that's also a good weapon for him. Now we're going to get into armor. Had a couple choices here, just need to find it all. Bloodline Magic Armor was one. HP defense plus 1%. When attacked with a melee attack, 10% chance to decrease damage taken in the battle by 30%. So overall good stats, and if that effect goes off, that'd be a pretty good effect to go off. Now there's also an armor called Mirror Armor. Just gotta remember where it was. There it is. Alright, so Mirror Armor, HP and defense plus 1%. When attacked, deals fixed damage to the enemy. So you're going to deal 0.5% of its hero's defense. This would be really good for the Royal Guard, guys. Because the higher the defense is, the more damage you're going to get. And you're going to reflect that damage. And it's also just pretty awesome gear there. Now we're going to get into helmets. So let's see. There's one called Reaper Breath, and there's one called Carbon Fiber Helm. So let's try to find those. There's Reaper's Breath. HP plus 2%. When eliminating an enemy on this turn after attacking, deals fixed damage to one of the enemies within 2 blocks. Damage equals 10% of max HP. So that would be a little bit stronger for, you know, the more HP stacking you're doing. Probably the middle route on the class there, but, you know, just 10% damage in general, fixed damage for the attacker too, because you have to kill someone in order for this to go off. That would be pretty good as well. And it's an always-on effect, so that's another awesome thing. Carbon Fiber Helm's my other one. When troop HP is above 50%, defense and magic defense increases by 1.5%. When troop HP is below 50%, attack and skill, that's crit chance, by the way, increases by 1.5%. So, just an in general thing that's always active. Pretty good stats there. But this has more magic defense, though. So, in general, it would probably be more useful for a I guess most of the helms have magic defense, so it doesn't matter. Alright, so last we're going to go to Accessory. So you can't use mobility accessories on these guys, which I guess that makes sense. So I had just one recommendation, actually. Let me start to find Spirit Boots. Here we go. So defense is increased by 1.5%. When initiating combat, it is possible to attack 2 blocks after battle. So you remember that when we go down the center tree, I believe... No, it's a Strike Master tree on the left. Eventually, once you master that, you get an ability to attack again after you attack. And I forget if it's connected to killing a unit or not. I think it was. But in this case, if you have these boots, well, this guy can just automatically attack. It's 2 blocks. It has to be within 2 blocks. But it's possible to attack again. So if you're in that point to where you're just freaking ping-ponging between bing, bing, bing. Don't know if it's going to stack if you get the Strike Master bonus. Not sure. Okay, can't say, like, but if it does, then that opens up the possibility of you go in and attack, you kill the unit, or you don't kill the unit, either way. You got your movement after, which is the 3 squares, but then you can also move and attack again. I believe it's within 2 squares again. So that's another attack, and then possibly this would go off after that and do a 3rd attack. Don't know. If someone does know, I would like to know if that is possible. If you've been playing on the Chinese servers or not. Possible. If it doesn't stack, then it doesn't stack. Then you can just have this until you get the Strike Master bonus. And then equip another relic here. But that was my recommendation, because most of these relics, they're kind of either offense bonus, defense bonus, etc. And I'm sure they're decent for him, but... So that's pretty much it, guys, for Leon here. Leon is a super powerful unit, so if you can get him, highly recommend getting him. Pull on his banner. And yeah, hopefully that was a good enough guide. So there you go. So, if this is your first time seeing me, yo, I'm Showtime Doctor, Showtimedr. You found my YouTube. Hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Also, there's a link in the title info to my Discord. I also leave a link to Leon's wiki in there. My Discord, my Twitch, streaming this game. Probably stream this later on tonight. Also, you know, come to the Discord. We got a tab for this game. Ask your questions, get help. Good community in there. Show off if you want. We have a lot of people doing that right now. And that's it for me, guys. I'll catch you again later. Peace out.